Wealth is not an option, it is an obligation for those who understand how the universe works. This is not an ordinary book. It is the secret root of many modern teachings on abundance, money, and the law of attraction. What you are about to hear is not empty motivation. It is an exact, precise, powerful map that has been hidden in plain sight for over a century. The science of getting rich is not spiritual poetry. It is a formula. It is a practical guide that reveals the exact way to think, act, and align yourself with the natural flow of wealth. And yes, although it was written in 1910, it is more relevant today than ever. Prepare to reprogram your view of money, because once you understand this, you will never be able to think the same way again. And if any part of you is already resonating with this power, comment below. I will create wealth in harmony with life. That way, I'll know you are ready to take control of your abundance. And now, let's begin. Chapter 1: The Right to be Rich. Whatever your purpose in life, you cannot achieve it if you do not have money. These are the powerful words of the great author, and they are not spoken out of ambition or greed, but out of understanding. Because here, we start from a truth that many people deny or fear to accept. You cannot fully develop yourself without wealth. Think about it for a moment. What happens when a person with a great dream lacks the resources to make it a reality? What happens when a noble soul with a message for the world cannot afford a camera, a website, a space, or simply enough food to stay focused on their purpose? The book does not say that money is the most important thing. It says it is essential for living a complete life. And that is something many spiritual or well-intentioned people ignore. They want to help the world, but they reject wealth, and that rejection condemns them to frustration. The author goes even further. Being poor is not a virtue and seeking wealth is not greed, because being rich in its purest definition is having the freedom to develop body, mind, and soul to the fullest. How is this achieved? By being in harmony with the natural order of the universe. And that natural order is expansive, creative, abundant. You are not here to survive. You are here to grow. When you desire more, when you aspire to elevate your life and multiply your resources, you are not going against God or morality. You are aligning yourself with the energy that creates planets, seas, and stars, because life itself wants you to prosper. It is perfectly right that you should desire to be rich. If you are a normal human being, you cannot help it. This phrase is like a slap in the face for all those who have ever felt guilty for dreaming big. The desire for wealth is not a flaw. It is a natural impulse of the soul that yearns for full expression. Desire is not the problem. The problem is denying that desire out of fear of judgment, failure, or imposed beliefs. And the author concludes with an idea that shatters many mental structures. You have the absolute right to be rich. Not on a whim, but because only through wealth can you buy books, take classes, travel, care for your health, protect your family, feed your mind, and give the world the best of you. The universe does not reward those who suppress themselves. It rewards those who align with its laws. So the question is not whether you should seek wealth. The question is, are you ready to make it part of your identity without feeling guilt? Because this is not a path of blind effort or endless sacrifice. It is a path of mental clarity, spiritual direction, and sustained action. A path where you understand that money is not your enemy but your tool. And here begins that transformation. Chapter 2: There is a science of getting rich. Getting rich is not a matter of environment, talent, or luck. It is an exact science like mathematics. This phrase seems to break with everything we have been taught since childhood, because many of us grew up believing that getting rich depended on inheritances, connections, privileges, or chance. But here the great author tells us something revolutionary. Wealth is a predictable result. A formula, a law, just as 2 plus 2 equals 4. Acting in a certain way inevitably leads to wealth. This completely changes the focus because we are no longer talking about motivation or good intentions. We are talking about applying a series of principles consistently, orderly, and with mental precision, and the results will be inevitable. Now, what does this mean in practice? It means you do not need to be born into a wealthy family. You do not need a university education or influential contacts. You do not need luck. You need to understand how this science works and apply it with faith and persistent action. And there is something even more powerful. This science works for everyone. It doesn't matter if you are in debt, if you have failed before, if you come from the bottom. The science does not discriminate. It is like gravity. It doesn't matter if you are rich, poor, wise, or ignorant. If you drop an object, it will fall. That is also how the science of getting rich works. The problem is that most people do not act with science. They act with desperation, fear, and doubt. And in that mental state, no formula works, because for this science to bear fruit, you must operate from an aligned, focused mind, obedient to certain universal laws. The author makes it clear. There is a right way to think, a right way to act, and a right way to relate to money. And anything that contradicts that way blocks your prosperity. And why isn't this taught in school? Because the system was not designed to create rich people. It was designed to create employees. But here you are, listening to this message, and that puts you in another category. It makes you a seeker, a rebel, someone who is not willing to leave their destiny to chance. So the key is this. Money is not a matter of luck, it is a matter of law. And when you align yourself with that law, with faith, with focus, with orderly action, wealth begins to arrive first in your mind, then in your habits, and finally in your physical reality. Are you ready to study this science with discipline and commitment? Because if you are, prepare yourself. The universe will respond with mathematical precision. Chapter 3. Is it right to want to get rich? You cannot achieve your maximum spiritual and mental development if you do not have money. Getting rich is a sacred duty. Think about it. This statement breaks with centuries of limiting beliefs that taught us that money was bad, that desiring it was selfish or even sinful. But the great author gives us a liberating truth. Seeking wealth is not only right, it is necessary. Why? Because a human being is not just a spirit floating in ideals. It is also body, mind, emotions, expression. And to develop fully in each of these areas, money is a fundamental tool. How will you nourish your mind if you do not have access to books, courses, travel, experiences? How will you expand your body if you cannot eat well, take care of your health, move with freedom? How will you grow spiritually if you live in anxiety about making ends meet? You cannot be truly free if you live in scarcity. Scarcity chains you. Poverty makes you survive, not flourish. And it's not about greed, but about purpose. Because the more you have, the more you can give. The more abundant you are, the more impact you can generate. Well-directed wealth is a form of love in action. It is your contribution to the world. It is the visible fruit of a mind aligned with expansion. Here the author says it clearly. Life always seeks more life, and you are an instrument of that expansion. You did not come to settle, you came to create, to build, to multiply. Therefore, desiring wealth is not desiring bills. It is desiring the freedom to be yourself to your fullest expression. It is choosing to stop begging and start manifesting. Many think that if I have enough to live, I am fine. But that is not humility. That is resignation in disguise. True humility is recognizing that the universe has given you gifts and your duty is to multiply them. Furthermore, when you prosper, not only do you win, your family wins, your community wins, society wins, because true wealth is not hoarding. It is circulation, creation of value, energy, and motion. Therefore, do not apologize for wanting more. Do it with pride. Do not hide your dreams of abundance. Declare them, and above all, do not settle. Expand because, as the author says, getting rich is a moral obligation, not out of ego, but out of responsibility to your potential. Because when you live large, you give others permission to do the same. And here comes the key question. Are you willing to leave behind every belief that made you see wealth as something dirty, selfish, or impossible? Because if you answer yes, then you are ready to start building the life you deserve from the heart, from action, and from a new vision of yourself. Chapter 4. The first principle in the science of getting rich. Thought is the only power that can produce tangible wealth from the formless substance. This chapter is a bomb of truth. Here the author reveals the core of all creation. Everything begins with thought, not with effort, not with hard work, not with contacts, inheritances, or luck, but with a clear, sustained, and focused mental image. The author speaks of the original thinking substance, a concept that may seem esoteric, but which even quantum physics is beginning to support today. Matter responds to the energy of consciousness. In other words, the reality you live is the exact reflection of the quality of your thoughts. If your thoughts are poor, limiting, negative, so will your world be. But if your thoughts are rich, expansive, precise, the entire universe aligns to materialize them. This is where many fail. They want money, but they think in scarcity. They want abundance, but they vibrate in lack. They want success, but their minds are trapped in doubt, fear, and guilt. The law is simple but inflexible. Think of wealth, attract wealth. Think of poverty, generate poverty. And there is no escape, no exceptions. That is why the author insists, you must form a clear and definite image of what you desire. A vague desire is not enough. You have to visualize it, feel it, detail it as if it already existed, because in the formless plane it already does. And then comes the most important thing, to hold that thought with constant faith. It is not sporadic visualization. It is a mental state, a permanent internal attitude. It is the absolute faith that what you imagine is already on its way. Even if you don't see it yet, even if circumstances say otherwise, this is the great secret. You do not need to see to believe, you have to believe to see. Most people reverse the formula. They believe only when there is proof, but the true mental creator anticipates the evidence. They know their thought is already working the invisible, and it is only a matter of time before the tangible catches up. That is spiritual science. That is true manifestation. The author gives us a task. Form the clear image of what you desire. Hold it with faith and act every day as if it were already arriving. That is what creates wealth, not shortcuts, not tricks, not desperation, but the conscious mastery of your thoughts, guided by a powerful vision, sustained by unshakable faith. And now tell me, what image are you holding? One of limitation or expansion, of fear or purpose, because that image is creating your reality. Chapter 5: Increase Life. Intelligence impels everything toward more life. Everything that lives has the inherent desire to live more. This principle changes everything. In this chapter, the great author reveals one of the most powerful and forgotten laws of the universe. Every being, everything, every force seeks to expand from a cell to an empire, from an idea to a fortune. Life always wants more life. And here comes the mental shift. Seeking wealth is not a selfish act. It is a natural expression of life itself. Yes, you read that right. The desire for more, for growth, for abundance is not greed. It is the very pulse of the universe beating within you. That is why when you want more money, more well-being, more freedom, more options, you are not going against the world. You are aligning with it. The thinking substance, that which creates all reality, does not respond to sacrifice or resignation, but to expansion. And here is the key. You can only become rich by making others increase their life as well. It is not about taking from anyone. It is not about competing. It is about creating value, contributing, improving the world of those around you. This is not just nice. It is practical. It is science. Because when you make others grow with you, you enter the natural flow of the universe, and in that flow there are no limits. Opportunities multiply. Ideas open up, resources flow, but if you act from scarcity, believing there is little, that you have to win at the expense of another, that you need to crush to stand out, you are swimming against the current, and the universe does not reward those who go against its laws. That is why the author insists on something crucial. You must become a channel of life, of expansion, of growth for all those around you, and that applies to any profession. A teacher who inspires, an entrepreneur who solves, an artist who elevates, an investor who builds. The key is this: your wealth is directly connected to the value you make grow in others. So I ask you, does your job, your business, your project make others increase their life? Are you contributing, multiplying, leaving a mark? Why, when you do it, the universe responds to you in the same coin: more life, more wealth, more expansion. And at that point, you are not just seeking money. You are participating in a divine process, the same process that makes a tree grow, the ocean, the galaxy, and now you too. Chapter 6: How to Get Rich. Getting rich is not the result of environment, luck, or talent, but of doing things in a certain way. Read that again. It is not luck, it is not talent, it is not inheritance, connections, or a specific city. It is a way of thinking, a way of acting, a way of being. That is what the great author teaches, and here he breaks one of the biggest lies we were told: that wealth is for a few, that you need special circumstances, that you need to be born with what others have. False. He makes it clear. Anyone who does things in a certain way can get rich regardless of their origin, regardless of their current situation. That certain way is not a trick, not a shortcut. It is a natural law, and when you obey it, wealth is an inevitable consequence. Now, what does it mean to do things in a certain way? Does it mean acting from the right thought? Does it mean having a clear, sustained, and persistent vision of what you want, and acting every day with faith, purpose, and gratitude? Think of it this way. You are a transmitter, and every thought you hold is an order you send to the thinking substance that forms everything. If that thought is of doubt, scarcity, fear, that is what you project. But if it is of certainty, faith, wealth, that is what you create. Wishing is not enough. You must desire with intensity, visualize with clarity, act with purpose, and never, ever let doubt steal that image. The author tells you, it is not about doing many things. It is about doing the right thing in the right way and doing it every day without deviation, because right action sustained by a clear image and unshakable faith is an unstoppable force. There is no economic system, crisis, or external barrier that can stop someone who acts in that way. And that is why this chapter is so powerful, because it gives you back control. You do not need to wait, you do not need permission, you do not need the world to change. You only need to change yourself, think in a certain way, act in a certain way, and do it with faith, with determination, with gratitude. And then wealth comes, because it is not a coincidence. It is a consequence, a natural response from a universe that obeys exact laws. And you, from today on, already know one of them. What are you going to do with this power? Chapter 7: Gratitude. The soul that lives in constant gratitude connects with the greatest power in the universe. This is not just a nice phrase, it is a formula for total transformation. Gratitude is not a simple courtesy gesture, not just saying thank you out of politeness. It is a creative force, a direct connection to the source of all wealth. The great author tells us something profound. The thinking substance, that which forms everything that exists, responds more strongly to those who show it recognition. Why? Because when you sincerely give thanks, you are confirming that you trust, that you are already receiving, that you live in certainty, not in doubt. And in that mental state, everything flows to you more quickly. Look at the logic behind this. If you think about what you lack, what you fear, what you do not have, you are generating a signal of scarcity, a vibration that blocks what you want to attract. But if you give thanks for what you already have and for what you are already visualizing as if it were real, you are sending a signal of abundance, of confidence, of faith. And the universe, like a perfect machine, responds with more of that. Do you see? Gratitude is not a consequence. It is a cause, an energy that opens invisible doors and sets in motion forces that were previously still. Now, the great mistake of many is to wait to have more to be grateful, but here the formula is reversed. First you give thanks, then you receive. Give thanks even before seeing results. Because your faith does not need proof. Your vision already sees it. Your heart already feels it. And that is what moves the invisible gear of wealth. So how do you apply this in your life? Every day before doing anything, enter a deep state of gratitude, not for what you lack, but for what you are already receiving, for what is already yours in your mind. Feel the wealth in your thoughts. Give thanks for it as if it were already in your hands, and then act from that state. Because when you think of wealth, give thanks for it, and act with faith, You become a magnet for opportunities, ideas, people, and situations that lead you directly to your goals. That is living in connection with the source. That is creating wealth from within. And that is one of the most powerful keys in this entire book. Now tell me in the comments what it is that you do not yet have, but are already giving thanks for as if it were yours. Write it down, declare it, feel it, and act every day as if you already were. Chapter 8. Thinking in a certain way. You do not get rich by doing certain things. You get rich by doing things in a certain way. Stop, read that phrase again, and tell me in the comments what it means to you, because this idea changes everything. Most people believe that money depends on hard work, connections, luck, but the great author makes it clear. It is not what you do, it is how you do it. And that how does not refer to techniques or external strategies. It refers to your internal state, to how you think, how you focus, how you act from a consciousness of wealth. And what does it mean to think in a certain way? It means that your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions are aligned with the certainty that you are already rich. It means you do not doubt, you do not compete, you do not compare, you simply create. That is the right way to think. And here is the mistake many make. They live desiring, imagining, but at the same time lamenting what they do not have. And that creates an internal contradiction, a mixed signal that the universe cannot respond to with clarity. That is why the great author insists, you must know clearly what you want and act as if you already had it. That is the secret of doing things in a certain way. It is not about obsessing over results or forcing the means. It is about having a clear mental image of what you desire, maintaining that image constantly in your mind with faith and gratitude, and moving every day with purpose, enthusiasm, and certainty. Because in that state every action counts, every movement has power, every step, no matter how small, is charged with intention. And that is how you attract wealth, not from effort but from direction. Now pay attention. Thinking in a certain way is not the same as just positive thinking. It is not about ignoring problems or denying reality. It is about positioning yourself mentally above it, looking at your goal, not your obstacles, acting from the end, not from lack. And this requires training, mental discipline, because the environment, the news, external voices, everything pushes you to think like a poor person, to fear, to lack, to limit yourself, but you choose. You decide if you think like the 97%, or if you think in a certain way. And if you choose the latter, here is a simple practice. Every day upon waking, visualize with total clarity your ideal life already realized. Do not imagine it as a distant dream, feel it as a present fact. Then ask yourself, how would someone who already lives like this act today? With what attitude would they walk? With what confidence would they make decisions? What would they focus on? And from there, do what you have to do, because the power is not in doing a lot, but in doing each thing in a certain way. And when you achieve that, you will not only get rich, you will become free. Chapter 9. The Science of Wealth. The science of getting rich is an exact system of laws that can be mastered and used by anyone who desires and understands it. This is where things start to get interesting, because the author talks about a science. And when we talk about science, we are talking about universal laws, principles that can be applied with precision. It is not magic, it is not chance, it is not luck. It is an exact system, and we can all access it. Imagine for a moment that wealth is like a natural law, just like gravity or the laws of motion. It is something that always works. It does not depend on your education, your contacts, or the global economy. The only thing you need to do is learn to align yourself with those laws. And here is the key. The law of attraction is not just an abstract concept. It is a scientific principle that can be applied to wealth. When you understand this law, you realize that the physical world responds to your thoughts, your vibrations. The reality you see in your life is not an accident. It is the reflection of your persistent thoughts. It is a result. And this completely changes the perspective, because now you have control. No more excuses, no more blaming external factors. Everything you need is already within you. Your mind, your thoughts, your emotions. Wealth, then, is not a stroke of luck or a matter of opportunity, but a direct result of what you think and feel. So, how can you apply the science of getting rich? The author tells us that the key is in action. It is not enough to think about wealth. It is not enough to visualize. The mind must be directed toward right action, action inspired by the certainty that what you are doing is aligned with universal abundance. But how do we know what the right action is? Here is the crucial part. Act with purpose. Every action you take must be aligned with your vision. It is not about doing things at random or on autopilot, but about acting with a wealth mindset. Every decision must be an opportunity to get closer to your goal. If, for example, you decide to start a business, do not do it just to make money. Do it because you believe in the value you can contribute, in the opportunity to help others. Money will follow naturally when your focus is on creating value. Now, the author also talks about the importance of gratitude. A grateful mind is a mind aligned with the abundance of the universe. Gratitude not only improves your emotional state, but also raises your vibration, and therefore your ability to attract what you desire. So from now on, make it a habit every morning. Give thanks for everything you have, for what is to come, and for the certainty that you are already rich. This practice not only changes your mood, it changes your state of vibration. And as we have learned, vibration is the key. When you are in a high frequency of gratitude, clarity, and inspired action, you are in tune with the laws of wealth. In summary, the science of getting rich is mental precision applied to daily life. It is action, it is gratitude, it is thinking with purpose, and it is aligning with the natural laws of the universe. So if you want your life to change and money to flow to you, start seeing wealth as a science. Understand the laws, apply the right actions, and live with the certainty that abundance belongs to you. Chapter 10. Acting in a certain way. It is not enough to want to be rich, not even to know that you are going to be. You must act in a certain way. That is the key. This phrase changes everything because yes, thinking is the beginning, visualizing is the engine, but the bridge between the invisible and the visible is action, and not just any action. The enigmatic author insists you must act in a certain way, an aligned, disciplined way, consistent with the mental image you hold of your wealth. Many fall into the trap of waiting. They wait for the perfect moment, the exact motivation, the ideal partner. But that waiting is the enemy of wealth. Wealth does not come to those who wait. It comes to those who move, who act with faith, even before seeing results. And what is that certain way? First, act from certainty, not from doubt. Every step you take, every decision you make must be charged with a quiet, solid faith, as if you already knew the result was guaranteed. Second, act with purpose. Do not scatter your energy. Concentrate on what you are doing today. Now put 100% of your attention, your capacity, and your enthusiasm into what you are doing at this very moment. The big mistake is thinking, when I have more time, I will do things better. When I get a better opportunity, I will try harder. No, that mentality delays your wealth. Be excellent today with what you have. Excel where you are before moving on to the next thing, because the universe does not take you to the next level until you master this one. And here comes something powerful. Every action, no matter how small it seems, is a seed, a conversation, an email, a sale, a decision. Everything counts, everything builds. Nothing is trivial. This demands an internal transformation. You must become a person who acts like a millionaire long before having the money. Not out of pretense, but out of focus, habit, mentality. Successful people do not wait to feel motivated. They act even if they are afraid. They act even if they are tired. They act because they understand that every step, even if imperfect, brings them closer to the destination. And to conclude, the author is blunt. If you do not act in that certain way, no matter how much you think, visualize, or desire, wealth will not come. That clear. So the question is, are you acting today like someone who is already rich, or are you waiting for the money to arrive to start acting that way? This chapter is a radical invitation to leave passivity and enter forcefully into your role as a creator. not of the future, but of the hour, because whoever acts like a rich person becomes rich. The universe has no other choice. Chapter 11. Acting Here and Now. You cannot act in the past, nor can you act in the future. You can only act in the present moment. This statement, although it seems obvious, contains a transformative truth. Effective action, the kind that creates wealth, can only be performed here and now. Many people procrastinate, saying, "I'll do it when I have time, when I'm ready, when the right time comes." But the enigmatic author makes it clear. The only moment you have to create wealth is this one. Not tomorrow, not later, now. This means there are no excuses. Lack of action today cannot be compensated with promises of future action. The universe responds to the present, not to future intentions or past regrets. The mind can dream, visualize, desire, but it is the body that must act, and the body only exists in the present. If you let your thoughts stagnate in past mistakes, you become paralyzed. If you project too much into the future, you disconnect, and in both cases, you stop acting with power. The author insists that every action must be performed with total attention, total intention. It is not doing for the sake of doing. It is doing with awareness, with purpose, with the certainty that every movement counts. Now, this does not mean running in 1,000 directions or being in constant agitation. It means taking advantage of every moment as an opportunity to get closer to your mental image of wealth. It means turning every minute into gold. You have a job you don't like. Do it with excellence. You have little money. Manage it wisely. You have little time. Use what you have as if it were invaluable. The author says, "Do with all your might each thing that you must do." And that all your might does not depend on your external circumstances, but on your internal presence. It is easy to underestimate this principle, to think it is just another philosophical idea, but it is not. It is a practical tool, a real creation technique, because every focused and present action creates a specific vibration, an energy that aligns with the wealth you want to attract. Acting here and now is more than moving. It is acting with intention, with emotion, with vision. Try this test for a single day. Perform each activity as if it were decisive, as if that simple act were the one that would unlock your millionaire future. You will notice something shocking. Your productivity soars, your energy changes, your mind clears, and opportunities begin to appear. This chapter is a call to deep action, not blind action, but conscious, precise, powerful action. And then the question you should ask yourself at the end of each day is, what did I do today that brought me closer to the wealth I already visualize as mine? Because if you do nothing today, it doesn't matter what you visualize tomorrow. Chapter 12. Efficiency in Work. Do you know the difference between someone who works hard and someone who works with purpose? Efficiency. And in this chapter, the great author shows us how that efficiency, when aligned with a creative and focused mind, becomes an unstoppable force toward wealth. It is not doing many things that leads to success, but doing each thing in the right way. Here it is not about running faster, but about advancing with precision, about acting with a consciousness so clear that every movement you make becomes an exact piece of the puzzle of your wealth. The author tells us that there is no tomorrow in the science of getting rich. There is only one moment, the now, but not just any hour, but an hour that contains all your mental energy, all your intention focused on what you are doing. Many people make the mistake of scattering themselves, jumping from task to task without finishing any, with their mind divided between guilt from the past and anxiety about the future. And so they lose power, because power resides only in the present. You do not need to do extraordinary jobs. You only need to do the job that corresponds to you today in an extraordinary way. That is efficiency. It is doing what you have to do, but doing it with a wealth mindset. It is giving value to every small action because you know that each one of them is building your new destiny. The author insists that we not leave any action incomplete, that we not postpone what we know we must do now, because postponing is denying the universe the opportunity to help you advance. And this is where the concept becomes transformative. When you do your part with excellence, the universe responds in proportion. Doors open, the right people arrive, opportunities appear. Every efficiently performed action becomes a brick placed in the temple of your wealth. This chapter is not an invitation to obsess over productivity, but to elevate your consciousness in everything you do, to put intention into it, to put presence into it, to work as wealth works in silence, with focus and precision. And if you are feeling that this message is resonating with you, leave a comment saying, "My present action is my future wealth," so that I know you are on the path and taking this knowledge seriously. Chapter 13. Getting the Right Ideas. Wealth does not begin with money. It begins with an idea. And this chapter is one of the most revealing in the enigmatic book because the author tells us something that breaks traditional schemes. You do not need to invent anything new to get rich. What you need is to get the right ideas and apply them in the right way. Everything you need to achieve what you desire already exists. Ideas are like seeds waiting for a fertile mind. Most people are waiting for a stroke of luck, a magical inspiration, or a secret formula that no one else knows. But the great author reveals to us that valuable ideas are everywhere. The difference lies in how you capture them and what you do with them. There are people who hear a great idea and forget it in seconds. Others notice it and do nothing. But there is a minority, the ones who get rich, who take that idea, meditate on it deeply, visualize it intensely, and act with decision. When your mind aligns with original thought, ideas flow to you with creative power. What is original thought? It is infinite universal consciousness, the source of all creation. When you think with faith, with gratitude, and from a pure intention, you begin to tune into that frequency. And the right ideas come to you as intuitions, as opportunities, as unexpected solutions. This chapter also warns us, do not be distracted by false or illusory ideas. Do not follow the path of those who are trying to get rich from competition, envy, or desperation. Those ideas, although they may seem attractive, are disconnected from real power. The ideas that lead to true wealth are imbued with peace, certainty, and purpose. Do you want to know if an idea is valuable? Observe yourself. If when thinking about it you feel clarity, expansion, positive energy, and a natural desire to act, you are facing an idea that comes from the right source. And there is something more. It is not enough to have good ideas. You must develop them. You must give them shape, plan them, work on them day after day with a fertile and focused mind. Think of the most successful people you know. All of them at some point took a seemingly simple idea and executed it with a rich mentality. It was not luck, it was alignment. So do this now. Write in the comments the phrase, "I am open to receiving the ideas that change my life," to declare that you are ready, that you are tuned in, that you are aligned with the thought that creates worlds and also wealth. Chapter 14. The Efficient Use of Will. Your will should not be used to control others, but to direct your own mind toward the form you wish to create. Most people think that will is a brute force tool, something that imposes on others, that forces the world to obey. But the great author radically changes this perception. True will is not used to force external reality, but to align your internal world. This chapter is powerful because it reveals one of the most ignored keys in the process of getting rich: the correct use of your mental will. What does this mean? It means that you should use your will solely to keep yourself focused on what you want to create, not to doubt, not to resist what others do, not to compete, but to hold your thought firm, clear, and constant in the image of what you want to achieve. Every time you allow your mind to wander into doubt, worry, or fear, you are misusing your will. And this is what most people do without realizing it. They spend hours thinking about what they do not want, what could go wrong, what they fear losing, without understanding that every negative thought is a mental order that sabotages their own progress. The enigmatic book tells us, you do not need a powerful will to change the external world. You only need a well-directed will to change the inner world. and that internal change will inevitably be reflected in your external reality. Think about this. When you hold a mental image of success and do not allow anything or anyone to destroy it, you are invoking invisible forces that begin to move in your favor. People, situations, resources, and coincidences begin to align. Not magic, mental science applied with will. Wealth does not come from desiring it once in a while. It comes when you maintain the right thought long enough, with enough intensity, and without distractions. That is why this chapter is a call to mental discipline, not to rigidity, not to forced effort, but to a soft yet firm will, one that each morning reaffirms your vision, that each afternoon chooses not to fall into worry, and that each night gives thanks as if it had already received everything. Imagine for a moment what would happen if for 30 days you kept your mind focused only on what you desire and did not allow a single doubt to steal your energy. That practice, although it seems simple, would transform your life more than any external strategy. So write it in the comments and do your part. I direct my will toward my wealth, and nothing distracts me, because in the next chapter we will see how to maintain that mental connection without interruptions, so that your thought becomes a result. Chapter 15. The Thought of Gratitude. Perpetual gratitude unites your mind with the source of all wealth and keeps your connection active and vibrant with it. This chapter is a forgotten gem. The great author reminds us of something many despise due to its apparent simplicity, the transformative power of conscious gratitude. And we are not talking about the typical superficial thanks. We are talking about a deep and constant mental attitude, one that vibrates in harmony with abundance, even when you cannot yet see it with your eyes. Because giving thanks before receiving is one of the hidden keys of the science of getting rich. Why? Because when you sincerely give thanks, you're telling the universe, or the infinite intelligence as the book calls it, that you fully trust that you will receive what you have asked for. There are no doubts, no fear, only certainty. Faith is impossible without gratitude. This phrase from the enigmatic book changes everything. If you cannot feel gratitude, it is because deep down you do not believe that what you desire is already manifesting. And if you do not believe, then you are not creating. And how do you practice this thought of gratitude? Very simply, each day upon waking, give thanks not for what you already have, although that is also powerful, but for what you are creating as if it were already real. Thank you for the abundance flowing to me. Thank you for the business that prospers. Thank you for the opportunities opening up. Thank you for the money that comes easily. Do not say it out of habit. Say it with feeling. Feel it in your body. Make it real inside before it manifests outside. This type of gratitude is not a reaction, it is a declaration. It is not a response, it is a creation. And here is the most powerful key this chapter gives us. The grateful thought connects you directly with the creative source, and that connection is what allows your desires to become facts. Do you see? It is not mysticism, it is mental alignment, internal science. When you stop giving thanks, you disconnect. When you constantly give thanks, you remain in the frequency of receiving. Therefore, gratitude is not an occasional act. It is a permanent attitude, a habit, a way of thinking, speaking, and living. Do this every day, and you will be applying the true law of attraction, the one that does not just imagine but manifests. So leave this powerful affirmation in the comments and feel it with your whole being. I give thanks because I am already receiving everything I desire. Chapter 16. A firm mindset, the key to staying on course. You must not deviate for an instant from your vision. You must remain firm, constant, and faithful to what you want to create. This phrase from the enigmatic book is not a suggestion. It is a law. At this point on the path, the great author has already given you the principles. You already know that thought creates. You already know that efficient action is necessary, and that gratitude is the magnet that keeps your connection active with the source. But here comes the greatest challenge: keeping the mind firm, even when everything seems to tell you otherwise, because this is where most people give up. They start with enthusiasm, visualize, give thanks, act. But when results do not come immediately, they doubt, disconnect, change direction, and that inconsistency breaks the whole process. You must live in the world of visible things while keeping your mind firmly anchored in the invisible. That is faith in action, not fanaticism. It is mental discipline. It is learning to see with the eyes of the spirit, even when the eyes of the body do not yet perceive the results. And how is this firmness achieved? This is where the great author gives us a powerful gem. Do not let yourself be affected by the appearance of things. Do not analyze with fear. Do not measure your progress based on what you do not yet see. You have already planted the idea. You are already acting efficiently. So trust, remain. It is like the farmer who plants a seed. He does not dig it up every day to see if it has germinated. He waters it, cares for it, protects it from the weather, and trusts the process. He knows the harvest will come if he does not interrupt the cycle. The same happens with your wealth. If you keep your thought firm, the results will be inevitable. Here is an exercise you can start today. Every time a doubt enters your mind, immediately change it for a powerful affirmation. For example, this is not working. Everything is aligning in my favor even if I don't see it yet. I don't see results. I am closer than I have ever been. Abundance is already on the way. And if you can, repeat this phrase from the book mentally each morning. I am creating that which I desire. I remain firm, focused, and grateful. Remember, mental firmness is a muscle. The more you exercise it, the more powerful it becomes, and there will come a point where nothing external can divert you. Nothing. Chapter 17. Failure does not exist, only feedback. There is no such thing as failure except when one gives up. This chapter is a powerful and necessary reminder because in real life, the one with bills to pay, uncertainty, criticism, and difficult days, it is easiest to label things as failures. We say, this didn't work, this isn't for me, maybe I was wrong. But the enigmatic book makes it clear. Failing is not falling, it is not getting up. And here appears a great truth that many forget. If you are reading this, if you are still walking toward your vision, if you can still think with purpose, then you have not failed. You have learned, you have adjusted, you have evolved, and that in itself is already wealth. The great author insists that the only way to lose this science of getting rich is to disconnect mentally from the creative power. It is believing more in lack than in abundance. It is focusing more on what is missing than on what is being built. And this can be corrected in an instant. How? By returning to the original cause, thought. You fell, return to your vision. You doubted, return to the perfect mental image of wealth. You sabotaged yourself. Return to gratitude because the universe does not punish mistakes. It only responds to what you maintain as a constant vibration. And if that vibration is of firmness, certainty, purpose, everything you lost is restored. Everything you desired realigns. There is a key phrase we must integrate from today. Every apparent mistake is just a lesson preparing me to receive even more. That is how guilt is transformed into growth. That is how frustration becomes wisdom. And in practical terms, this means you can start over at any moment with the same power you had at the beginning, because the source of wealth never closed. Only your connection was clouded for a moment, and that, as you already know, is corrected with a single decision. To think the truth again, to act with purpose again, to give thanks again as if you already had everything. Remember this. Every fall trains you, every mistake sharpens you, and every step, even the crooked one, takes you where you need to be if you stay in the right frequency. The science of getting rich is not a perfect path. It is a path of perfection. And that, my friend, is what makes all this worthwhile. Get ready, because in the next chapter we will see how to combine all this wisdom with service to others and how that, far from taking wealth away from you, multiplies it. Chapter 18. The highest use of will. Do not use your will to force others. Use it to keep yourself firm in the right thought. This phrase changes everything because until now you might have thought that will was a tool of imposition, control, making things happen by force. But the great author gives us a total twist. Will is not for changing the world. It is for keeping your internal world in the right frequency, and that changes everything. This chapter reminds us that the greatest power we have is not in controlling the external, but in not letting the external control our interior. When your environment screams scarcity, you choose to keep thinking in abundance. When results do not arrive, you keep acting with faith. When doubts knock at the door, you remain in the certainty that it is already yours. That is true will. Most people use their will to try to change others, to convince, manipulate, resist. But that is not the path to wealth, because all that energy is directed outward, and what creates is not effort but alignment. Do you realize how profound this is? What makes you rich is not how much you struggle, but how much you remain aligned with the truth, even when everything else seems to be falling apart. Will serves only one thing: to keep you in your inner place when circumstances want to push you out of it. And that requires practice, awareness, and decision. The enigmatic book reminds us that you are not here to convince anyone or to change the whole world. You are here to think clearly, act with purpose, give thanks as if it were already real, and maintain that state. And that, believe me, is harder than any physical work, because it requires internal silence, it requires focus, it requires saying no to what distracts you and yes to what connects you. Will is your internal guardian. It is the voice that reminds you who you are when fear screams that you cannot. It is the flame that remains lit in the middle of the storm. It is the invisible force that holds your vision when everyone around you has stopped believing. And that, precisely that, is what separates the one who desires from the one who manifests. Because the one who manifests is not the one who tries the hardest. It is the one who remains the firmest, the one who acts as if they already had it, the one who gives thanks before seeing the results, the one who walks in certainty while others still doubt. That is the one who ignites the science of getting rich. And now the question is, are you using your will to resist the world or to keep yourself in the right thought? Your answer not only defines your internal state, it also defines the pace at which wealth manifests in your life. Chapter 19. Right Thought and Personal Action. Thinking correctly is not enough. You must also act correctly. This is one of the strongest revelations in the entire enigmatic book, because it is not enough to visualize, to feel, to give thanks. You must act, and not in any way. You must act with clarity, with faith, with the certainty that you are already on the right path. This is where many people stumble. They think well, meditate, affirm, but their actions are disconnected from thought. They say they believe, but they paralyze. They visualize millions, but keep postponing that business. They fill themselves with audios and books, but do not call that client, do not launch that idea, do not take that step. And the great author says it clearly. Thought creates the form. Action gives it reality. Imagine this. You are building a house in your mind. Every right thought places a brick. Every intense emotion reinforces its foundations. But if you do not act, that house remains suspended in the air without ever touching the ground. Action is what anchors your vision to the physical world, but not just any action. This chapter tells us that you must do everything you can do today, not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready, not when the perfect opportunity appears today, here, now. And this is important. You must not worry about tomorrow or anguish over what you do not yet know how to solve. Just do what you can do at this moment with what you have, and do it well, not from effort or stress, but from a mindset of fullness. Like someone who already knows their success is assured and acts with purpose, not anxiety. This completely transforms your relationship with the present. You no longer act to see if something happens. You act because you know that every right action adds to your manifestation. Because you understand that if you do your part, the universe will do its part. This principle gives you back power. It takes you out of the role of victim who waits, doubts, and fears, and puts you in the role of creator who thinks, acts, and gives thanks. And this is key. It is not about acting more. It is about acting from another place, from faith, not from fear, from certainty, not from lack, from purpose, not from desperation. When you align your thought with action, everything begins to move. Opportunities arrive, The right people appear, money flows, and what seemed impossible suddenly becomes inevitable. So do not forget this formula. Right thought plus efficient action equals inevitable wealth. And if today you can only take one step, take it, but do it like someone who is already on the right path. Do it with intention, do it with faith, do it with your whole being, because wealth does not come from what you do, but from how you do it. From what frequency, from what certainty, from what vision. Chapter 20. The Law of Increase, Multiplying Everything You Touch. You must convey the impression of increase in everything you do. This idea may seem simple, but it contains one of the most powerful keys in the entire science of getting rich. The great author insists, every interaction, every word, every product, every service must carry an implicit message. If you are near me, you are going to grow. And this mindset changes the game. Most people live in scarcity mode. They want to save energy, avoid giving too much, keep the best for later. But true wealth does not come from what you retain, but from what you elevate. Think about it. People want to be around those who make them feel more alive, more valuable, more capable, not those who focus only on what they can get. When you give value, you multiply your value. This is the law of increase. If you have a business, make your customer feel that just by dealing with you, they have already won. If you have a job, let your bosses, colleagues, or clients see that with you, everything improves. If you are embarking on a venture, let every step you take be imbued with growth, possibility, and expansion, no matter your current situation. Increase is an energetic decision, not an external condition. Because when you operate from this consciousness, you automatically attract more opportunities, more open doors, more meaningful connections, and above all, you attract respect. Respect from the universe, because with your actions you are saying, I am here to contribute, to elevate, to multiply the good. And life responds to that. Do you want to become magnetic? Ask yourself this question before every action. Am I leaving this person, situation, or space better than I found it? If the answer is yes, you are in the frequency of increase, and wealth will inevitably come behind, because in the end, true abundance does not come from having more, but from doing more with what you already have. Now tell me, who can you start adding more value to today? Your answer will mark the beginning of your new way of operating, and with it, a new era of real and lasting growth. Chapter 21. The Advanced Man, Becoming the Source of Wealth. The man who practices the science of getting rich becomes a center of increase for all those around him. This chapter is a call, a challenge, a declaration of identity. It is not just about getting money, it is about becoming a living source of wealth. The great author says, you do not just obtain wealth, you generate it, you radiate it, you provoke it. This transforms your role in the world. You are no longer someone who chases success. You are someone who creates it wherever you go. Imagine this. Every place you visit is elevated by your energy. Every person who deals with you feels pushed to improve. Every project you participate in flourishes faster, not because it is lucky, but because you have become an advanced man, a man who acts with purpose, clarity, and expansion. And to be that man, there is an essential condition. You must completely reject competition. Yes, competition destroys, puts you in defense mode, makes you think that for you to win, someone else must lose. But you are not here to compete. You are here to create. And by creating from the right thought, everyone wins with you. That is the secret of the truly rich. Their wealth is not a threat to others. It is a field of expansion. Therefore, if you really want to advance, do not copy, do not envy, do not fight for what others have. Create, elevate, inspire, and always do it from the spirit of increase, from the intention that all those around you prosper with you. Because when you become that man, the universe cannot ignore you. It turns you into a magnet for more resources, more ideas, more support, more impact. Do not forget, you are not here to be one more. You are here to be the origin. Now answer yourself honestly. What kind of energy are you radiating today? One that elevates or one that drains? One that multiplies or one that consumes? Correct that, and the world will take care of the rest. Chapter 22. A final warning: do not wait until conditions are perfect. You do not need more power, more time, or more knowledge. You only need to decide and move forward. We have reached the final warning of the enigmatic book, and it is not a gentle closing. It is a direct alarm clock to the mind. Because if after all you have read you are still waiting for the perfect moment, then you understood nothing. This warning is not to scare you, it is to shake you. The great author knows that many people come this far full of enthusiasm, motivation, and hope. But when the book ends, they return to the same life, the same habits, the same excuses, and that is why he tells you without beating around the bush. Do not waste time, do not distrust the process, do not return to the old. The mind tends to do that. When something new comes in, it evaluates it, compares it, questions it. And if there is no immediate action, it discards it. That is why this final warning is so powerful. Do it now. Do it as if your life depended on it, because it does. It depends on you thinking in a new way. It depends on you acting with a different energy. It depends on you stopping repeating what never worked. And this is where many fail. They want a new reality, but they are not willing to give up their old self. That self that doubts, that gets distracted, that procrastinates, that says someday. But wealth, as you have understood throughout this journey, is not achieved with vague desires. It is achieved with firm faith, a clear vision, and decisive actions. Do not be confused. You do not need to change everything overnight. You only need to start acting like someone who already knows they are rich from today, from your routine, from every small decision. This final chapter makes you a silent proposal. Either you choose to stay where you are, or you choose to enter the flow of creative wealth. There is no third way. And if you decide to enter, do not look back. Do not get distracted by comments, news, or the pessimistic logic of the world. Stay on your path. Remain firm. Believe as if you already had it. Act as if it were already yours. The universe will respond because it always responds, but it does so for those who align and do not stop. That is the true science of getting rich, and now you know it. What you do with it is up to you. Now tell me in the comments what habit you are going to drop today to open yourself to wealth. Respond with intention, because that is the first signal you give the universe that you are ready. Chapter 23. Final Reflections. The power is within you. Wealth is not a destination. It is a faithful reflection of how you are thinking and acting at this moment. This last chapter is not one more lesson. It is the mirror that forces you to look at yourself head-on, not through the lens of your dreams or your excuses, but through your internal decision to change. The great author makes it clear. The science of getting rich is not a theory. It is a practice, a way of being. And now that you have come this far, you can no longer say you do not know. You cannot say you did not understand, because deep within you, you already know that this knowledge resonates with a truth you have felt all your life. That desire for freedom, for expansion, for impact, was not a coincidence. It was your calling. This final chapter reminds us that you do not need to wait for something external to change. Everything is within you. Matter responds to thought. Action creates the path, and faith sustains the process. You already have the pieces. Now the game is yours. Think about this. What would happen if today you started thinking like a wealth creator, not like a money chaser? What would happen if you made every decision from the certainty that you are already on your way to your prosperity? You do not need to do it perfectly. You only need to do it from the right consciousness. That is the core of this entire book. It is not about magical techniques. It is about understanding a law, respecting it, and aligning with it with every thought, emotion, and action. Do you want to know if you are on the right path? Ask yourself this every day. Am I acting like someone who is already rich or like someone who still doubts? The answer will tell you everything, because remember, it is not about how much money you have now, but about the frequency you are thinking in. That frequency will attract the rest. This is your moment. You are not here by accident. You have read, reflected, felt something inside you that ignited. And now only one thing remains: to live from that new consciousness with firmness, with vision, with purpose. And so the inevitable will occur. Wealth will come to you because you will have become its cause. You have reached the end, but this is not an end. It is a turning point because now you know. Getting rich is not a privilege for a few. It is a science. And like all science, it can be learned, applied, and mastered. The great author made it clear. It is not about how many degrees you have or how hard you work, but about how you think, how you act, and from what energy you do it. You are not here to settle. You are not here to survive. You are here to create wealth with purpose, with power, with consciousness. Today you have received tools that most will never discover, and that makes you different. Someone who will no longer look at money with fear or desire, but with responsibility and certainty, because now you know that money is not the goal. It is the natural result of aligning with right thought, of acting with unshakable faith, and of always moving in harmony with the universe. And if you ever doubt, remember this. You did not come into this world to compete. You came to create, to expand. You came to enrich your life and the lives of all those around you. So go out there. Act like someone who is already rich. Feel like someone who already possesses everything they desire. Think like someone who has already achieved the impossible. Because if you do, what you imagine today will very soon be your reality. Leave your comment with this phrase if you made it this far. My wealth is inevitable because I am already on my way. Subscribe for more content like this, and remember, knowledge is power, but applied knowledge is freedom. Until next time.